Stop scrolling. In the next 10 seconds, you'll hear the single mindset that changes everything. This audiobook drills into how focusing on you every day turns tiny routines into unstoppable victories. Inside 10 powerful chapters, you will learn how to build deep self-focus, forge unshakable belief, create daily habits that compound, choose discipline over fleeting motivation, protect your energy and mindset, learn and level up continuously, bounce back like a warrior, rely on consistency, visualize then act to attract results, and live winning as a lifestyle. Subscribe now and hit the bell. New audiobook chapters drop every day, so progress becomes inevitable, and this channel runs with zero ads, so every minute is pure fuel for your growth. Join a community committed to action, not excuses. Tap subscribe to start Chapter 1 and begin transforming little decisions into massive outcomes. Your future starts today. Start right now. Chapter 1. The Power of Self-Focus. Morning light slides across the floor, thin and deliberate, as if the day itself practices economy. The sound of a single kettle boiling, a breath, the weight of a mug in your hand. These are small anchors that bring attention back to the only thing that truly matters. The self that shows up every day. Focusing on yourself is not an indulgence. It is the disciplined act of tending to the instrument that must perform. The more finely tuned that instrument, the clearer the work it can do in the world. Begin with a simple truth from the Stoics. Control what is within your power and accept what is not. Attention is within your power. Where attention goes, energy flows. Choosing to focus on yourself is choosing to direct that energy with care, to invest in habits and judgments that compound over time. This is not about vanity or selfishness. It is an ethical choice to build capacity so that contribution becomes possible. The life that comes from a steady practice of self-focus is less chaotic, less reactive, and more capable of deliberate action. Practical focus starts before the day rains obligations onto your schedule. Create a short morning ritual that defines what matters before anything else demands it. Wake to a concrete first action. Sit upright, breathe deeply for 3 full cycles, and write down 3 realistic intentions, 1 for the body, 1 for the mind, 1 for the day's single most important task. This practice anchors attention. The body intention might be walk 20 minutes or stretch for 5. The mind intention could be read 1 substantive page or practice kais, breathing for 5 minutes. The task is the one action that, if completed, will make the day feel like progress. Keep it visible. A note on the table, a whiteboard by the door, so the decision to focus does not depend on motivation later. Control the environment to reduce friction for focused action. The senses are conduits for distraction. Shape them. Before work, cultivate a small area that signals functionality, a cleared desk, a charged notebook, a cup of tea or coffee with a deliberate aroma. Silence notifications or move the phone out of sight. The sight of an uncluttered surface and the sound of focused breathing can be as firm a boundary as the closing of a door. This is not grand design, it is stoic engineering. Arrange externals to support internal discipline. Adopt a discipline for attention that honors human limits. Use a timer and commit to a single uninterrupted block of work. Start with 25 minutes. Increase toward 90 for deep tasks. Close tabs that tempt. If an intrusive thought arises, write it on a scrap of paper, then return to the task. This is the practice of attention fencing. Note, contain, return. Over time, those fences become sturdier. The ability to sustain attention is muscle work. It grows with regular contraction and rest. Guard energy by setting non-negotiable boundaries. Saying no is a practical skill and an act of respect for the self. Have a simple script ready for requests that divert from priorities. Not right now, I'm committed to X. Rehearse it until it feels natural. Boundaries include time, physical proximity, and emotional investment. Remove or minimize relationships and contexts that drain more than they give. This does not require cutting people off cruelly. It requires clarity about available capacity and a calm articulation of limits. Practice voluntary discomfort to enlarge capacity. Short, intentional exposures to discomfort, cold showers, a hard workout, a period of fasting, waking earlier than usual, build resilience. These exercises are not about suffering for suffering's sake, but about proving to yourself that discomfort can be met and managed. Each intentional test of limits expands the range of what feels possible. The result, when real hardship arrives, the reflex is not panic, it is composure and a methodical approach. Use daily reflection to convert experience into wisdom. Each evening, spend 5 minutes writing 3 things that went well and 1 lesson from whatever went poorly. Make the language concrete, not made progress, but completed 60 minutes of focused work on Project X. The lesson should be actionable. Next time, set my phone to do not disturb for the first 2 hours. This short habit anchors learning and prevents mistakes from repeating. It is the Stoic practice of evening examination brought back to modern life. Apply the rules of small wins. Break large goals into tiny, repeatable actions that can be executed daily. Instead of get fit, commit to do 20 push-ups each morning or walk 30 minutes before noon. Instead of learn Spanish, commit to study 5 new words and use them in a sentence. Small wins accumulate and change identity when a habit is sustained. The internal story shifts from I try to I am. The mind pays attention to identity more than aspiration. Becoming the type of person who completes daily increments changes the available future. Practice negative visualization as preparation rather than fear. Imagine obstacles, uninvited setbacks, and the loss of comforts. The goal is not to invite despair, but to prepare the mind to handle loss with composure. Visualize a day when an important meeting is cancelled, or a project fails, or a relationship strains. Plan immediate responses, breathe, reevaluate priorities, and act on the next smallest step. Negative visualization is a pre-mortem. It softens shock and makes action clearer when things go wrong. Structure the week to protect high-value blocks. Identify your peak energy times and place your most important work there. Guard those times as if they were appointments with the future. Use the rest of the schedule for lower energy tasks, emails, administrative tasks, small meetings, batch tasks to reduce switching costs, and trust that concentrated effort on priority work will produce disproportionate returns. Time is the raw material of achievement. Treat it with the reverence it deserves. Cultivate intellectual discipline through focused learning. Select one book, one skill, or one course, and commit to slow, steady study. Read with a pen, underline, write margin notes, summarize key ideas. Apply one concept each week to the real world. Learning that is merely passive is entertainment. Learning that meets practice becomes capacity. Rotate skills so depth is balanced with breadth. Master a few things deeply while steadily expanding useful horizons. Measure progress in output and character, not applause. External validation is fickle. Internal standards are durable. Keep a simple ledger of what matters. Tasks completed, habits kept, responses chosen under pressure. Add a column for character markers. Did patience win, or did reactivity? Did courage show, or did avoidance? This daily accounting shifts attention from external noise to internal criteria. The ledger becomes a mirror, Over time, the reflection clarifies what needs more discipline and what already stands firm. Adopt rituals for recovery as deliberately as rituals for work. Rest is not a passive default, it is part of the strategy. Sleep, deliberate relaxation, and small pleasures are investments in the self. Schedule time away from the work desk without guilt. Walk with attention to the body's sensations, the texture of pavement underfoot, the rhythm of breath, the breath's slight chill on inhalation. These sensory details are anchors back to presence. Hold a long-term horizon while acting in daily increments. Winning is not a single event, but a lifestyle of incremental improvements. Use monthly reviews to adjust trajectory, celebrate progress, prune what no longer serves, recommit to practices that produce results. The long view prevents temporary setbacks from becoming identity crises. The Stoic posture is consistent. Endure what must be endured, act where action is possible, and align desires with reality. Finish each week with a simple question. Did the week make the self stronger, kinder, and wiser? If yes, amplify what worked. If no, identify one concrete change for the coming week. Replace vague resolutions with precise commitments. I will complete 3 focused work blocks between 9:12 on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, rather than work harder. Precision transforms intention into behavior. The practice of focusing on yourself every day is not an excuse to retreat from life. It is preparation for meaningful engagement. When attention, energy, and values are cultivated, giving to others becomes sustainable and profound rather than a depleting performance. The self that is disciplined is the self that can endure hardship, make clear choices, and persist until victory, however that victory is defined. A single disciplined day is a small victory. Many disciplined days, strung together over months and years, build a life that can be offered without apology. Returning each morning to simple rituals, protecting attention, practicing voluntary discomfort, reflecting with honesty, and measuring progress against internal standards forms a practical architecture for growth. The path is steady, not glamorous. The results are real. Focus on yourself every day until the small capitals of discipline add up into the large ledger of success. Chapter 2. Build unshakable self-belief. Morning comes with the kind of quiet that exposes every thought, and in that silence, a question often surfaces: who believes in what is being built inside of me? Confidence is not a sudden wind that lifts a boat. It is a steady keel forged by repeated choices and honest evidence. Doubt is normal, an echo from calculation and fear. But unshakable self-belief is the discipline of responding to that echo with facts, action, and unyielding practice. It begins by changing the conversation inside the head from accusation to investigation. Belief grows when claims about ability are tested against reality, not when they are spoken as wishful thinking. Start by noticing the language used internally. Replace vague condemnations with precise observations. Instead of "I always fail," record the last 3 attempts and what specifically happened in each. This shifts the mind from judgment to learning, and learning is where confidence is built. The difference between complaint and curiosity is one of the smallest changes in form and one of the largest in effect. Confidence requires competence, and competence requires a plan that breaks mastery into manageable steps. Identify one core skill that matters most for current goals and list the smallest possible actions that move competence forward. If public speaking is the barrier, the smallest action may be reading a 2-minute Gamram aloud every day and increasing length weekly. If financial literacy is the obstacle, the smallest action could be tracking 2 categories of spending for 30 days. Tiny, consistent work dissolves the illusion that ability must appear fully formed. A practical method for silencing doubt is to keep a ledger of verifiable outcomes. Each evening, write one concrete accomplishment from the day and one specific improvement. The accomplishment might be completed 3 pages of manuscript or reached out to 2 prospective clients. The improvement could be spoke up once in the meeting or replied to emails within 24 hours. Over weeks, the ledger turns into a body of proof that directly contradicts the internal narrative that claims incompetence. Body and mind are not separate in the work of belief. Habitual posture, breath, and movement influence the nervous system, and thus the story thought tells about capability. Standing with shoulders back and breathing with a slow exhale for 30 seconds before a stressful event lowers immediate anxiety and signals the brain that the body is prepared. Practice entering demanding situations with a brief physical routine, 3 deep breaths, a solid stance, and a quick review of the exact next action. That small ritual anchors the nervous system and reduces the potency of doubt. Self-trust deepens when promises to oneself are kept, even when the task is small and boring. Choose 3 micro-commitments and keep them without negotiation for 30 days. These commitments should be non-ambiguous, measurable, and easy to check. For example, write 300 words each morning, walk 30 minutes daily, or send 1 networking message every Tuesday. Each completed commitment is a deposition in the court of self-trust. When the ledger accumulates, resistance loses authority. Practice reframing failure as information rather than identity. When results disappoint, ask 3 specific questions. What went wrong? What could be changed next time? And what part of this result is outside my control? This turns emotional reactivity into strategic adaptation, the difference between being shaken and being redirected. The Stoic approach is to accept the occurrence and master the response. The habit of inquiry makes the response a skill. A single practice that can be performed every morning and every night will accelerate belief faster than occasional pep talks. The practice is called the evidence ritual, and it requires only 5 minutes twice a day. In the morning, write 1 sentence that states the single most meaningful thing to accomplish that day, and 1 sentence that names a personal strength you will use to accomplish it. In the evening, write 1 sentence describing what happened with that meaningful thing, and 1 sentence noting the smallest win you achieved. This ritual trains attention on actionable priorities and constantly archives proof that capability is growing. Real change is illustrated best through example. A woman named Aisha worked as a junior project manager in a company where decisions were loud and criticism came fast. Early on, questions in meetings caused her to freeze and withdraw for days afterward. Aisha started with a simple promise to herself: speak at least once in every meeting, even if it was only to summarize what had been said. She paired that with the evidence ritual, noting each evening that she had spoken and what the content had been. At first, the contributions were small summaries, then brief, thoughtful questions, then proposals. After 3 months, she was trusted with larger responsibilities, not because she suddenly liked public speaking, but because consistent action created a record of competence and the team adjusted its expectations. The fear remained sometimes, but the ledger of facts outweighed each instance of doubt. Accountability amplifies progress. Choose 1 trusted person to receive a weekly note listing 3 commitments and the outcomes. Report honestly. The shame of hiding truths slows growth far more than the sting of critique improves it. Accountability should be framed as partnership. The other person is not a judge, but a witness who helps translate intentions into sustained behavior. Mindset work is necessary, but it must be concrete. Replace abstract affirmations with action-linked statements. Instead of repeating "I am confident," practice "I prepare for the meeting" by reading the agenda and writing 2 points to share. Preparation is the bridge between desire and demonstration. Over time, the pattern of preparing, acting, and recording creates an identity based on evidence. Reduce exposure to toxicity that erodes belief. Evaluate social feeds, conversations, and environments for repetitive patterns of diminishment. Small, consistent exits from draining contexts reallocate attention and emotional bandwidth toward constructive work. This is not avoidance of challenge, it is the elimination of needless sabotage so energy can be spent on skillful practice. Measure progress in useful metrics. Instead of vague satisfaction, track completion rates, reaction times, or number of attempts. For creative work, count drafts or minutes of focused writing rather than waiting for applause. For social courage, count invitations extended or uncomfortable conversations started. Metrics that map directly to effort encourage a culture of action and reveal patterns that raw feeling cannot. Celebrate without losing momentum. Mark small wins in a way that reinforces the behavior. A short walk after a productive block, a favorite meal after a week of kept promises, or a quiet reading hour when a streak reaches a milestone. Reward must be immediate and proportional, or it will fail to reinforce. The joy of small celebrations increases the likelihood of repeat behavior and makes the practice sustainable. Resilience is built by rehearsing recovery. When an effort fails, practice the immediate ritual of pause, breathe, and plan one next action. The next action should be the smallest meaningful step possible, not a grand pivot. Returning to motion after a setback clears emotional fog and restores agency quickly. Confidence anchored in reality becomes unshakable because it is not fragile to opinion or circumstance. Doubt will still arrive, but it will be met with data, a steady body, and a practiced way of responding. Each smaller success accumulates into a broader sense of self that can withstand the inevitable storms of ambition. The daily labor of belief is not glamorous, but it is effective. Keep the process simple, keep commitments concrete, and keep evidence visible. Over months, the quiet accumulation of small victories turns hesitation into habit and doubt into a softer, manageable voice that invites investigation rather than decree. End each week by reading back the evidence ritual entries and the ledger of outcomes. Notice the formation of patterns, which practices consistently produce confidence and which environments repeatedly drain it. Use that knowledge to prune behaviors and double down on what produces growth. In this steady, patient work, unshakable self-belief forms not as arrogance, but as the calm conviction of someone who knows what has been tried, what works, and what the next right step is. Chapter 3: Daily Habits That Shape Your Destiny. The life you live today is the sum of hundreds of small choices you repeat without much thought. These choices may feel insignificant in the moment, but over weeks, months, and years, they shape the trajectory of everything you become. Destiny does not arrive by chance. It is written in the ordinary patterns you practice each morning, each afternoon, and each evening. When people wonder why some rise steadily while others remain stuck, the answer almost always comes down to consistent habits. What you choose to do daily has far greater power than what you occasionally attempt in bursts of motivation. Consider the weight of the first hour of your day. That time quietly dictates the tone of everything that follows. If the first act of the day is scrolling through a screen, the mind becomes scattered before it has the chance to focus. If, instead, the first act is deliberate, stretching the body, journaling a thought, drinking water, the day begins on solid ground. A morning routine does not need to be complex. It only needs to align with what strengthens you. A person who begins each day with intention gradually rewires their perception of control. That small routine is a declaration that life is not random but shaped by choice. Habits are not simply behaviors repeated, they are identity carved into action. Each time you choose to follow through on a routine, you cast a vote for the type of person you want to become. For example, when you write a single paragraph every day, you are not just completing words, you are becoming a writer. When you walk for 30 minutes each evening, you are not just moving your body, you are becoming someone who values health. These small decisions accumulate and eventually overpower the old self who once doubted. The greatest danger with habits is underestimating their power. Because results are not immediate, people abandon them too quickly. The first week at the gym does not transform the body. The first month of reading does not make you an expert. But hidden beneath these small acts is a compounding effect that only reveals itself after sustained repetition. Compounding is silent, but relentless. What looks like nothing today becomes unshakable strength tomorrow. The same way interest grows in a bank account, daily habits grow invisible momentum until they reshape character and outcomes. One practical practice to adopt is the rule of 3. Each day, write down 3 habits you will complete, no matter how the day unfolds. These should be small enough to guarantee success, but meaningful enough to build identity. For instance, drink 2 liters of water, review goals for 5 minutes, and spend 20 minutes in focused learning. Even on the busiest days, these 3 actions are achievable. Over time, they form the backbone of consistency. When life becomes chaotic, the rule of 3 prevents drift. A real-life example of this truth can be seen in the story of Marcus, a young man who struggled with confidence and direction. He once believed success belonged to people with more resources and talent. But after reading about the power of daily routine, he chose one simple action. Each night before bed, he would list 3 tasks for the next day. At first, the tasks were modest. Finish an assignment, call a mentor, clean his workspace. But after weeks, this habit grew into clarity. He no longer drifted through his days. Over the course of a year, that single nightly practice expanded into a full system of time management and skill building. Marcus eventually launched a small business, not because of one bold leap, but because of small daily choices that shaped him into someone capable of running it. His destiny was altered by a single habit he protected. Habits must also be tied to triggers. The brain loves associations, and when you pair an action with a specific cue, it becomes easier to sustain. If you want to practice gratitude, attach it to the act of brushing your teeth each morning. While brushing, think of one person you appreciate. If you want to build strength, tie it to something you already do. After making coffee, do 10 push-ups. These anchors reduce the friction of decision-making. The fewer choices required, the easier it is to continue. Consistency matters more than intensity. Too often, people burn out by demanding too much at once. A person who meditates for 3 minutes every day will gain more long-term peace than someone who meditates for 30 minutes only once a week. The key is the sustainability. When you design habits, ask yourself, can I see myself doing this a year from now? If the answer is yes, you have chosen wisely. Evening routines are just as important as mornings. They close the day with reflection and set the stage for rest. Simple actions such as writing down what you accomplished, reading a few pages of a thoughtful book, or preparing your clothes for the next day help signal the mind that life is under control. Sleep that follows order is more restorative than sleep that follows chaos. A strong evening habit preserves energy and keeps momentum steady across days and weeks. Another element that strengthens habits is environment. Willpower is fragile when placed against constant temptation. By shaping the surroundings, you reduce resistance. Remove unhealthy snacks if you want to eat well. Place a notebook on your desk if you want to write. Keep your phone in another room if you want to focus. Design your space to make the desired action the easiest option. Over time, the environment begins working for you instead of against you. The practice of recording progress should not be neglected. A simple journal or calendar where you mark completed habits creates a visual chain of proof. Watching the streak grow becomes motivating in itself. Each mark says, "I am someone who follows through." Breaking the chain becomes painful, not because of guilt, but because of pride in the record you've built. This accountability with yourself builds quiet strength. When challenges arrive, and they always do, habits provide stability. During stressful periods, elaborate goals can collapse under pressure, but simple routines remain manageable. A person who has trained themselves to return to small habits each day will not drift far from center. This is why destiny favors those who build habits. When life becomes unpredictable, routines act as ballast, keeping the ship upright. A subtle truth about habits is that they create freedom, not limitation. To the undisciplined, routine feels like a cage. But to the disciplined, routine is liberation. When core habits run automatically, mental energy is freed for creativity and decision-making. The person who no longer debates whether to exercise, read, or plan gains an advantage over the one who negotiates with themselves each day. This freedom compounds into confidence, productivity, and peace. The ultimate test of a habit is whether it makes you stronger in character. Beyond skills and achievements, habits sculpt patience, perseverance, and integrity. Waking early trains discipline, saving money trains foresight, speaking kindly trains empathy. Each habit is more than an action. It is a lesson embedded in repetition. Destiny is not just what you achieve, but who you become, and who you become is written in the habits you protect. The life you imagine is not built in a single leap, but in thousands of ordinary steps, repeated until they become natural. Each day offers an opportunity to vote for your future through the habits you choose. Protect them as you would protect treasure, because they are, over time, these daily choices carve a path so clear that others may call it luck or talent, but you will know it was habit all along. Destiny is not waiting. It is already being written in the small routines you practice when no one is watching. Chapter 4. Mastering discipline over motivation. There are mornings when the alarm rings and the body feels like stone. The air is heavy, the mind whispers excuses, and even the simplest task seems impossible. In moments like these, people often wait for motivation to arrive, believing it will carry them forward like a wave. But waves come and go, and motivation is fickle. Discipline is the force that does not wait for inspiration. It is the steady hand that holds the line when every part of you wants to quit. Mastering discipline means creating a life where action is not dependent on feeling ready, but on choosing to honor commitments regardless of mood. Motivation is emotional fuel. It sparks quickly, but burns out fast. Discipline is structural. It is the framework that holds everything up when fuel runs low. A person relying only on motivation will find themselves inconsistent, brilliant on some days and absent on others. But the one who trains discipline shows up every day with or without desire, and that consistency is what builds greatness over time. To develop discipline, the first step is to stop asking whether you feel like doing something. Feelings are unreliable guides. Instead, anchor your actions to decisions already made. If you have chosen to train at 6 in the morning, then the alarm is not a suggestion, but an order. By following through without negotiation, you rewire the brain to act without debate. Over weeks, this habit removes the constant drain of decision-making and builds a reflex that does not depend on mood. A simple practice to build discipline is the one more rule. Whenever you feel the urge to stop, whether in exercise, study, or work, commit to doing one more repetition, one more sentence, one more call. This tiny extension strengthens resilience and teaches the body and mind that quitting is not the default. Over time, one more becomes a symbol of strength, proving that discipline outlives discomfort. Consider the real-life story of Daniel, an aspiring musician who dreamed of mastering the piano. At first, he relied on bursts of inspiration. Some days he practiced for hours, and other days he avoided the instrument entirely. Progress was slow, and frustration built. A mentor advised him to forget about passion for a while and focus on discipline. Daniel committed to practicing 30 minutes every day at the same time, no exceptions. Some days he felt inspired, other days he dreaded the bench, but he sat and played regardless. After 6 months, the transformation was undeniable. His skill grew faster than ever before, not because he always felt motivated, but because he learned to remove choice from the process. Daniel's story proves that discipline does not care about mood, it cares about consistency. Discipline requires structure. Build routines that protect important actions from delay. If you want to write, decide on a fixed time each day and set a visible reminder. If you want to exercise, prepare your clothes and shoes the night before. Remove barriers so that the only step left is execution. The more automatic the process becomes, the less energy it requires to follow through. Another key element is accountability. When discipline feels heavy, external structure can support it. Share your commitments with a trusted person or use a journal where you mark each day of completion. The act of recording progress is not about reward, but about evidence. A visible streak of disciplined behavior becomes difficult to break because you value the record you have built. Discipline also means embracing discomfort. The body and mind resist effort, but growth is hidden in those uncomfortable moments. Instead of seeing discomfort as punishment, view it as proof that progress is occurring. The weight that feels heavy in the gym is the same weight that strengthens the muscle. The challenge that feels overwhelming in study is the same challenge that sharpens the mind. By welcoming discomfort, you train yourself to persist where others retreat. Rest must be disciplined as well. Discipline is not endless strain, it is balanced effort. If you push without recovery, the system collapses. Set boundaries around rest, the same way you set boundaries around work. Go to bed on time, step away from screens at night, and schedule moments of stillness. True discipline means honoring both effort and recovery, because both are essential to long-term progress. The language you use with yourself determines how discipline feels. Instead of saying, "I have to," practice saying, "I choose to." Discipline is not slavery, it is self-mastery. Every disciplined act is a vote for the person you are becoming. When you choose to act in alignment with your goals despite resistance, you reinforce the identity of someone who can be trusted. Self-trust is one of the most powerful outcomes of discipline. It is also important to separate urgency from importance. Motivation often pulls you toward exciting but shallow tasks, while discipline keeps you anchored to what truly matters. Make a short list each morning of the 1 or 2 tasks that have the greatest impact on your future. Complete them before anything else. This prioritization ensures that discipline is not wasted on distractions, but invested in meaningful progress. Over time, discipline creates freedom. To the untrained, structure feels restrictive. But when routines are established, the mind is liberated from constant debate and procrastination. Instead of wrestling with indecision, you move directly into action. The hours saved by discipline can then be used for creativity, rest, or growth. Freedom does not come from doing whatever you feel like. It comes from training yourself to do what must be done. Discipline also teaches humility. You learn that mastery is not achieved in one leap, but in thousands of small, repetitive actions. There will be days when progress feels invisible, but every act of showing up is a brick laid in the foundation of your future. Humility keeps you steady when results are slow and guards against arrogance when results finally appear. In the end, discipline is less about force and more about alignment. It is about designing a life where the actions you repeat daily reflect the future you desire. Motivation may visit you occasionally, but discipline is the companion that never leaves. It stands beside you in the early hours, in the long afternoons, and in the evenings when fatigue whispers lies. It carries you forward when excitement fades, and reminds you that greatness is not the product of occasional passion, but of consistent practice. The truth is simple: if you depend only on motivation, your progress will always be fragile. If you train discipline, your progress becomes inevitable. Build routines, embrace discomfort, keep promises to yourself, and practice the one more rule. With time, discipline becomes part of your character, a strength that no circumstance can remove. And when that strength is in place, you are no longer at the mercy of fleeting moods. You are steady, capable, and unshakable, moving forward every day, whether you feel like it or not. Chapter 5. Protecting your energy and mindset. The mind is a crowded room where thoughts jostle for attention, and without careful management, noise becomes the norm. Protecting energy and shaping a resilient mindset begins with deciding what is allowed into that room and what is shown the door. Energy is finite. It leaks through endless notifications, draining conversations, and habitual comparison. Guarding it is not about building walls to the world, but about choosing where attention, emotion, and effort are spent so that capacity remains for what matters most. Start by recognizing the sources of drain. Keep a simple log for 3 days that records moments when energy drops noticeably after certain calls, scrolling sessions, or specific interactions. Note the time, the trigger, and the immediate feeling. This small inventory reveals patterns invisible to casual observation. Once patterns are known, the first intervention is removal or reduction. Turn off non-essential alerts, limit time with people who leave a residue of tension, and unsubscribe from feeds that cultivate agitation rather than information. The goal is not comfort at all cost, but clarity of field. Fewer interruptions, more bandwidth for intention. Design micro-boundaries that make protection practical. A morning rule could be a 60-90-minute screen-free window dedicated to nourishment of body and mind, hydration, movement, reflection, and planning. An evening rule might be to stop consuming news or social content 1 hour before sleep to preserve mental quiet. Put these boundaries on the calendar and treat them as fixed appointments with purpose. When boundaries are activated, decision fatigue is reduced because fewer impulses enter the arena to be fought off. Cultivate the ritual of an attention anchor. Before engaging in any demanding task, perform a 30-second reset. Breathe long inhales and slow exhales while placing a hand on the chest to feel the heartbeat. Then review the single most important next step. That simple sequence signals the nervous system to align with intention and reduces the scatter that comes from rushing into action. Over time, this ritual becomes a habit that reliably prepares the mind for depth. Energy protection also requires curating company. Time spent with draining individuals compounds harm just as daily small habits compound benefit. Evaluate relationships by their net effect. Do conversations leave a person feeling energized and provoked toward growth, or do they feel depleted and confused? This is not an excuse for cruelty, It is a practice of allocation. Communicate limits with calm clarity, short, direct statements about availability and emotional bandwidth. Keep goodwill intact while preserving self-care. The intake diet matters as much as the social one. Information consumed repeatedly shapes beliefs and emotional tone. Replace sensationalist or fear-driven inputs with sources that educate, uplift, or offer practical tools. Choose one reputable source for current events, one for professional learning, and one for creative or spiritual replenishment. Structure intake times rather than grazing continuously. Scheduled, focused consumption keeps the mind informed without becoming intoxicated by urgency. Create friction for what steals attention. Place the phone in another room during focused work. Uninstall apps that invite aimless browsing, and use browser blockers when deep work is required. Make distraction an effort, not a reflex. The initial resistance to checking an impulse will fade. As new patterns form, the fewer quick access points to diversions, the more likely attention remains intact for meaningful pursuits. Protecting mindset requires language discipline. Internal conversation shapes emotion. Replace absolutist or catastrophic framing with clear, actionable observation. Instead of thinking, "This always ruins my day," shift to "That interaction drained me. I will take 20 minutes to recover and then decide what's next." This small linguistic shift turns rumination into a manageable plan and preserves energy previously wasted on spinning thoughts. Recovery rituals are practical protection, not indulgence. Schedule restorative practices with the same seriousness as work appointments. A short walk between meetings, 30 minutes of reading, or a mindful hot shower that becomes a boundary between professional life and personal time. Physical cues, changing clothing after work, lighting a candle for evening reflection, or moving to a specific chair for journaling, signal transitions and safeguard psychological rest. Emotional hygiene is another pillar. When negative emotions arise, treat them as data rather than directives. Name the feeling, identify its source, and decide on one small corrective action. Breathe, step outside, call a supportive person, or write a quick note. Naming reduces intensity and offers a path to resolution. Habitual avoidance amplifies energy drain. Addressing emotions promptly preserves clarity. The practice offered here is the energy audit and shield protocol, a repeatable routine to reclaim mental and emotional bandwidth. Start each morning with a 5-minute audit. List 3 potential energy drains expected that day, and write one pre-planned response to each. Example entries might be: client call likely to be tense, practice 3 long breaths beforehand, and set a 30-minute cool-down after, or evening social feed scrolls, schedule a 30-minute walk instead. At midday, perform a 2-minute check-in, breathe, note current energy level on a 1 to 110 scale, and take the planned response if the number is below 6. Conclude the day with a 10-minute reflection, record moments of depletion, actions taken, and one change for tomorrow. Repeating this protocol creates anticipation and readiness. Many threats to focus stop being surprises and become manageable events. A concrete example makes this real. Rashid worked in a busy customer service center with back-to-back calls, frequent complaints, and a culture that rewarded immediate responsiveness. After months of burnout, morale down, and sleep restless, an older colleague suggested a targeted change. Rashid implemented a brief pre-shift routine, 10 minutes of stretching, 3 deep breaths while visualizing a steady presence, and a list of 3 conversational boundaries to use during difficult calls. He also set a rule to take a 5-minute break after every 2 challenging interactions and to walk outside for fresh air. Within weeks, his ability to remain calm increased, mistakes dropped, and fatigue decreased. Colleagues noticed his steadiness and asked him how he managed stress. The small commitments to prepare, reset, and recover produced outsized effects. Protection of energy does not require grand retreats. It requires small, repeatable defenses that keep capacity intact for meaningful work. Mindset shaping is an active endeavor. Replace catastrophizing with problem-focused thinking, rehearsing solutions for likely setbacks rather than rehearsing fear. Adopt a short mantra such as respond with clarity to cue calm during moments of external pressure. Say the phrase silently and use it as a prompt for the attention anchor when overwhelmed. Over time, a calmer default emerges because the mind habitually moves toward response rather than reaction. Physical health and sleep are non-negotiable allies. Chronic energy depletion almost always has physiological roots. Poor sleep, inadequate nutrition, and lack of movement degrade both emotion and cognition. Invest in consistent sleep schedules, nourishing meals that stabilize energy across the day, and regular movement, even short walks. The mind's capacity is directly dependent on bodily care. Protecting energy without attending to the body is temporary and brittle. Finally, practice generosity but with limits. Serving others can be deeply energizing when capacity is abundant and the cause aligns with values. Assess contributions for reciprocity and meaning. Withdraw from relationships or obligations that repeatedly siphon effort without alignment or restoration. Saying no to some demands is a yes to the work and people who deserve a whole presence. Take responsibility for the field of attention. It is possible to cultivate a life where attention is an asset rather than a casualty of every passing stimulus. By identifying drains, setting micro-boundaries, designing rituals for reset, and practicing the energy audit and shield protocol, a quieter, more focused mind becomes the default. Protecting energy is not an act of selfishness, but an investment. When inner capacity is preserved, impact expands and resilience deepens. The shield is small, the practice simple, but the result is a life that can sustain effort, clarity, and generous contribution over the long run. Chapter 6. Learn, improve, repeat. Progress is not achieved by occasional leaps, but through the steady rhythm of learning, applying and refining every single day. To become someone who grows continuously, it is necessary to adopt the mindset of a lifelong student, someone who sees every situation as an opportunity to expand capacity. Knowledge itself is not enough. It is the cycle of absorbing, practicing, adjusting, and repeating that transforms raw information into skill and wisdom. This process is simple in principle but requires humility, consistency, and patience to carry forward. The first step is cultivating the willingness to learn from every source. Books, conversations, failures, and even quiet moments of observation all carry lessons, but they reveal themselves only to those who are attentive. A curious mind asks what can be gained rather than dismissing experiences as irrelevant. Curiosity opens doors that arrogance keeps shut. By treating every moment as a teacher, the world becomes an endless classroom where no day passes without progress. Improvement emerges when lessons are not just collected, but practiced deliberately. To read about discipline, resilience, or skill is one layer. To put those insights into motion, however awkward at first, is the layer that shapes reality. Improvement demands discomfort, because repetition exposes weaknesses and forces refinement. Growth is less about brilliance and more about the courage to stumble, correct, and continue. The moment practice becomes consistent, transformation begins to compound. Repetition solidifies change. Skills that are practiced sporadically remain fragile, while those reinforced daily become automatic. This is the secret of mastery. Not sudden bursts of excellence, but patient reinforcement until actions become natural extensions of the self. Each repetition is a brick laid in the foundation of future strength. Without repetition, knowledge evaporates, but with it, learning hardens into ability. One practical method for living this cycle is the daily reflection ritual. At the end of each day, take 10 minutes to write down 3 questions. What did I learn today? How did I apply it? How can I improve tomorrow? The answers do not need to be elaborate. Even small insights, such as noticing how patience, a conversation diffused conflict, become powerful when recorded and revisited. Over weeks, the journal becomes a map of growth, showing clear evidence of progress and guiding further action. This ritual transforms random learning into structured improvement, reinforcing the cycle of learn, improve, repeat. Consider the example of Arif, a young software developer who struggled with confidence in his skills. He often compared himself to colleagues who seemed more advanced and felt he was falling behind. Instead of resigning to doubt, he committed to an hour each evening of intentional practice. He would learn one new programming concept, apply it by building a small feature, and then note where he struggled. At first, his progress seemed minimal, but within 6 months, he noticed that tasks that once took him hours were completed in minutes. His confidence grew, not because he told himself to believe, but because the evidence of consistent practice built a foundation too strong for doubt. His colleagues began seeking his advice, and the cycle of learning, improvement, and repetition had quietly transformed his identity from insecure beginner to trusted contributor. Learning daily also means being open to correction. Feedback can sting, but it is one of the fastest ways to accelerate improvement. A person who welcomes critique as data rather than insult gains an advantage over those who protect their ego. Instead of fearing mistakes, embrace them as markers on the path of mastery. Each correction saves time and directs attention to the exact spot that needs refining. This attitude not only accelerates progress, but also cultivates resilience, for setbacks are no longer threats, but guides. Continuous learning requires balance between depth and breadth. Depth is gained by committing to improve specific skills until competence turns into mastery. Breadth is developed by exploring new subjects, perspectives, and fields that broaden understanding. Both dimensions fuel growth. Depth provides expertise, while breadth fuels creativity and adaptability. By alternating between the two, a person avoids stagnation and remains dynamic in an ever-changing world. Protecting the cycle from stagnation is essential. It is easy to confuse activity with progress, reading without applying or practicing without reflection. That is why the sequence must remain intact. Learn with intention, practice with focus, reflect with honesty, and repeat with consistency. Missing one step weakens the cycle, but honoring each step makes growth inevitable. Another useful practice is the micro-challenge method. Choose one small improvement to pursue for 7 days, a skill, a behavior, or a mindset shift. Commit to practicing it daily, record progress, and adjust as needed. After 7 days, choose a new micro-challenge while maintaining the gains from the last. This method prevents overwhelm and creates constant motion. Over months, the accumulation of small challenges produces extraordinary transformation. Real progress also requires humility in the face of endless learning. No matter how skilled, there is always another layer to uncover, another refinement to make. The world changes, knowledge evolves, and adaptability becomes the mark of wisdom. Those who stop learning quickly fall behind, while those who continue to approach life with the curiosity of a beginner remain sharp, flexible, and prepared for whatever comes next. The human brain thrives on challenge. Each time something new is learned and practiced, new connections form, expanding capacity and resilience. Just as muscles strengthen with resistance, the mind grows sharper with effort. Avoiding difficulty may bring temporary comfort, but it robs long-term strength. Seeking challenge deliberately ensures that the cycle of learning remains alive and powerful. In practical life, this philosophy applies everywhere. A leader who studies communication techniques and applies them during meetings becomes more effective at inspiring teams. A parent who reflects daily on patience and tries new approaches with children builds stronger bonds. A student who reviews mistakes after exams and adjusts study methods steadily rises in performance. The cycle is universal, adaptable to every role, every ambition, every stage of life. The essence of lasting growth is not in being extraordinary once, but in choosing to improve incrementally every day. Learning, improving, and repeating is less glamorous than sudden breakthroughs, yet it produces deeper and more sustainable results. The ordinary person who commits to this cycle will eventually surpass the talented individual who relies only on raw ability. Every day offers a choice: repeat old habits or create new ones that bring progress. By choosing the latter, even in small ways, the path of improvement becomes inevitable. Energy invested in learning never goes to waste, because it compounds silently, showing its full power only after time has passed. What feels like slow motion in the present becomes exponential growth in hindsight. A life built on this principle becomes one of constant evolution. Stagnation disappears because each day carries a lesson, a practice, and a refinement. The person who embraces this path does not wait for the perfect moment to improve. They recognize that the perfect moment is always today. And by honoring the cycle of learn, improve, repeat, they step closer each day to the fullest version of themselves, building strength, wisdom, and resilience that no setback can erase. Chapter 7. Overcoming setbacks. Like a warrior. Life is never a straight road. It is scattered with delays, detours, and disappointments that test inner strength. Some people see setbacks as proof that they are not good enough, while others interpret them as signals to quit. Yet those who endure and eventually succeed share one defining trait: they refuse to be broken by obstacles. They do not deny pain or pretend everything is fine. Instead, they confront reality, extract lessons, and use the experience as raw fuel to move forward. A warrior mindset is not about avoiding defeat, but about rising each time it strikes, stronger and more prepared than before. When failure arrives, the first instinct is often emotional collapse, frustration, anger, shame. These are natural responses, but staying stuck in them robs progress. A disciplined approach is to acknowledge the feelings without letting them dictate the next move. Say to yourself, "This happened, I did not want it, but it is here. What now?" That small question transforms energy from despair into direction. Instead of being a victim of circumstances, you begin to reclaim control. Setbacks serve as mirrors, showing weaknesses that comfort often hides. A failed project may reveal poor preparation, a lack of persistence, or misplaced trust. Rather than rejecting the mirror, lean into it. Ask hard questions. Where was I unprepared? What signals did I ignore? Which choices weakened my position? These questions are not about blame, but clarity. Clarity turns painful experiences into blueprints for future action. Without reflection, the same mistake will repeat. With it, the same mistake becomes unlikely to happen again. The warrior mindset does not treat struggle as permanent. One of the most powerful mental shifts is to see setbacks as temporary interruptions, not permanent definitions. Just because today ended in disappointment does not mean tomorrow cannot be different. When you anchor yourself in the truth that every event is temporary, the burden lightens. Storms pass, seasons change, and failure is only one chapter, not the entire book. One practice that strengthens resilience is the three-step setback protocol. First, write down exactly what went wrong, specific details, no exaggeration. Second, identify one lesson hidden in the failure, no matter how small. Third, design one concrete action to take immediately that embodies the lesson. This simple process turns defeat into strategy. Instead of drowning in regret, you emerge with clarity and direction. Repeat this protocol consistently, and setbacks lose their power to paralyze. Take the real-life example of Maya, a young entrepreneur who launched her first business with excitement and ambition. She poured energy into marketing, but sales never grew. After a year of struggling, she had to close the company. At first, the failure crushed her. She questioned her abilities and wondered if she was cut out for business at all. Yet after weeks of reflection, she applied a disciplined process. She wrote down what happened. Lack of research, poor cash flow management, and over-reliance on one product. She identified lessons, validate ideas with customers before scaling, diversify income streams, and track finances weekly. Finally, she designed actions. She enrolled in a finance course, started small side projects to test markets, and sought mentorship from experienced entrepreneurs. 2 years later, her second business thrived. The same woman who once felt defeated became an example of perseverance because she used failure not as a grave, but as fertile soil for growth. Setbacks also demand emotional resilience. It is easy to attach self-worth to outcomes, believing that success defines value. But when worth is tied to results, every failure feels like an identity crisis. To overcome this, anchor identity in effort and character rather than outcome. You may lose a match, miss a target, or fall short of a goal. But if discipline, integrity, and courage remain, your core remains intact. This separation between self and outcome creates space to grow without fear. Another key to handling setbacks is perspective. Most failures feel larger in the moment than they do in hindsight. Years later, what once felt catastrophic often appears as a stepping stone. Training yourself to zoom out to imagine how today's failure will look in 5 years restores balance. What feels unbearable now may be the very event that redirected you toward a better path. Habits of recovery are also vital. Warriors do not keep charging forward recklessly. They rest, recalibrate, and return stronger. After a setback, take deliberate time to restore energy, exercise, sleep, meaningful conversations, quiet reflection. Neglecting recovery risks burnout, while intentional restoration prepares you for the next challenge with renewed strength. Surrounding yourself with resilient people matters too. Isolation magnifies failure, while supportive communities reframe it. Share your experience with someone who has walked a similar path. Often, their perspective makes you realize that setbacks are universal and survivable. Guidance from those who have endured before you provides both strategy and hope. Patience must also be cultivated. A setback is rarely resolved overnight. Progress after failure is incremental, requiring repeated small steps that rebuild confidence. Trust in the compounding effect of consistent action. Even if you feel like you are moving slowly, remember that motion in the right direction always beats stagnation in regret. Warriors are forged in fire, not comfort. Every obstacle overcome adds a layer of resilience, shaping character in ways success alone cannot. The scars of failure are not marks of shame, but proof of survival. They remind you that pain was endured and growth was earned. Carry them not with bitterness but with pride, for they are the evidence of strength. Every great story carries chapters of struggle. Athletes lose championships before lifting trophies, inventors face countless rejections before breakthroughs, and leaders often endure setbacks before building legacies. The common thread is persistence, the refusal to let one defeat define the entire journey. If they had stopped, their names would be forgotten. Because they continued, their stories inspire. The road of progress is never free of obstacles. The question is not whether you will face setbacks, but how you will respond when they come. By choosing to confront them with honesty, extract lessons with clarity, and act with determination, you turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones. Failures lose their sting when they are seen as training grounds. Remember this truth: setbacks are not the opposite of success. They are a part of it. Every warrior who triumphs has known defeat. Every champion has fallen, and every strong soul has been broken before being rebuilt. What separates those who win is not luck, but the refusal to surrender when the world says stop. If you choose to rise again, each fall becomes fuel, each mistake becomes wisdom, and each struggle becomes strength. And in that relentless rising, you prove that no setback has the power to define you unless you allow it to. Chapter 8: Consistency beats everything. Greatness is rarely the result of one massive leap. It is born out of the quiet, unglamorous repetition of small actions done with patience and faith. Many people wait for inspiration or chase big breakthroughs, but those who endure and succeed know a deeper truth. Consistency outperforms bursts of motivation, talent, or luck. The person who moves forward step by step, every single day, builds momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. Success is not about intensity for a week, but persistence for years, and those who understand this principle turn ordinary actions into extraordinary results. The difficulty is that consistency is not exciting. It does not come with applause, and most days look painfully ordinary. Writing a page daily, saving a small sum, practicing scales, or exercising for 20 minutes may not feel transformative in the moment. Yet these actions, when stacked together over months and years, reshape skill, health, confidence, and identity. The compounding effect is invisible at first, which is why so many quit before results arrive. The key is trusting the process even when progress is hard to measure. Consistency also requires a shift in identity. Instead of asking, "How fast can I achieve this?" a better question is, "What kind of person am I becoming by doing this daily?" When actions are tied to identity, they become sustainable. A runner does not debate whether to run. Running is simply what a runner does. A disciplined writer does not negotiate with excuses. Writing is the natural behavior of someone who identifies as an author. By building identity around small habits, consistency becomes less of a struggle and more of a way of living. One practical practice that strengthens consistency is the chain method. Choose one small daily action that aligns with a long-term goal. Writing 200 words, reading for 15 minutes, or meditating for 5. Each day that you complete it, mark it visibly on a calendar with an X. Over time, the growing chain becomes motivating, and the new goal shifts from finishing the task to never breaking the streak. This transforms discipline into a game with visible evidence of progress. Even when the effort feels small, the chain proves that momentum is alive. Consider the example of Daniel, who dreamed of becoming a musician. At first, his practice sessions were erratic, based on bursts of motivation. Months passed with little improvement, and frustration grew. One day, he committed to a different approach. 10 minutes of guitar practice every evening, no matter what. Some days, he played longer, but he never missed his minimum. A year later, he realized that his fingers moved effortlessly, chords flowed without hesitation, and songs he once struggled with were now second nature. What changed was not raw talent, but the discipline of showing up daily. His consistency built skill far more effectively than occasional long sessions ever could. Another aspect of consistency is preparation. Waiting until the moment of decision invites excuses, but preparing in advance reduces resistance. Lay out workout clothes the night before, schedule focused work blocks in the calendar, or keep a book on the bedside table. Preparation removes friction, making it easier to follow through. Over time, even on days of low energy, the system carries you forward. Consistency also thrives when progress is measured. Keep simple records of completed actions, a log of workouts, a notebook of pages written, a tracker for saved money. Measurement makes invisible progress visible and fuels motivation. Looking back and seeing weeks of completed actions creates pride and strengthens the resolve to continue. The human mind is wired to respond to evidence, and when that evidence confirms growth, consistency feels rewarding in itself. There will be days when energy is low, obstacles appear, or mood is poor. Consistency is not about perfection, but about persistence. Missing once is human, but missing twice creates a new pattern. The warrior approach to consistency is to recommit immediately after a miss. Instead of spiraling into guilt, acknowledge the lapse, reset and return to the practice. Success comes not from never falling, but from refusing to stay down. The beauty of small daily actions is that they reshape self-belief. Each completed action whispers a quiet truth. I am capable. I keep promises to myself. Over time, these whispers drown out doubt. Confidence grows, not through grand speeches or affirmations, but through repeated evidence of follow-through. Trust in yourself is built when your actions align with your intentions, and consistency is the bridge that connects the two. Consistency also demands patience with delayed results. Just as seeds planted today do not bear fruit tomorrow, habits require time to mature. Many abandon the process because they cannot yet see the harvest, but those who endure understand that invisible growth is still progress. Roots are forming beneath the surface, even when no leaves appear above. Trust that persistence will eventually reveal results, just as nature always rewards steady cultivation. A real test of consistency is how it holds under pressure. It is easy to keep routines when life is smooth, but true strength is shown when challenges arise. Consistency in difficult times, choosing to still read, still exercise, still save even when stressed, builds resilience. It proves that your habits are not fragile, but durable, able to withstand storms. This resilience compounds into inner strength that carries into all areas of life. The truth is that many extraordinary achievements are simply ordinary actions multiplied by time. A book is just pages written one at a time. A strong body is the result of repeated workouts. Wealth is built from daily financial discipline. Relationships grow through small gestures consistently shown. Nothing massive is required, only persistence. Think of a sculptor chiseling stone. Each strike of the hammer may look insignificant, but together they reveal a masterpiece. The same applies to life. Daily actions may seem small, but accumulated over time, they carve a destiny. What determines whether the sculpture appears is not the strength of each strike, but the refusal to stop striking. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is powerful. While others wait for motivation, the consistent person builds momentum. While others quit at the first sign of boredom, the consistent person grows stronger. While others look for shortcuts, the consistent person quietly surpasses them. In the end, it is not intensity that defines victory but persistence. By choosing one small action and repeating it daily, you begin to shape your future. Over weeks, the action becomes habit. Over months, the habit becomes identity. Over years, the identity becomes destiny. What seems small today becomes enormous tomorrow. And when you look back, you will see that your greatest victories were not the result of luck or sudden breakthroughs, but of showing up again and again when it mattered most. Consistency beats everything, and those who honor it build a life of strength, achievement, and fulfillment that no one can take away. Chapter 9. Visualize, Act, and Attract. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the life you truly want. Not the life you've been told to settle for, not the safe version you've rehearsed in your head, but the boldest, most fearless vision of who you can become. That vision is not a fantasy, it's a preview of what's possible if you align your mind with your actions. Visualization is the spark, but action is the flame that brings it to life. When the two work together, you step into a powerful flow where you don't just chase opportunities, you attract them. Too often, people make the mistake of choosing only one side. Some spend hours imagining their dream, but never lift a finger to pursue it, leaving their vision to fade into frustration. Others grind relentlessly, but never pause to define what they are working toward, so their actions scatter in 100 directions, with no clear outcome. The truth is that you need both. Clarity of vision to guide you, and deliberate action to manifest it into reality. Think of vision as the blueprint of a house and action as the bricks laid one at a time. Without the blueprint, the bricks pile up aimlessly. Without the bricks, the blueprint stays a drawing on paper. Together they create something tangible, something you can live in. Your life works the same way. Visualization without execution is daydreaming, and action without vision is wasted effort. But when you combine them, you create a force of attraction that draws success into your orbit. One practice that turns this concept into a daily ritual is called future rehearsal. Each morning, spend 5 minutes vividly imagining yourself living the life you're working toward. See the details, the room, the colors, the sounds, the feeling in your chest as you accomplish your goal. Feel the pride, the gratitude, the excitement, as if it's already yours. Then, immediately write down one concrete step you will take that day to move closer to that vision. It could be making a phone call, sending an email, practicing a skill, or finishing a task. The visualization primes your subconscious to believe it's possible, and the action signals to your brain that you're serious about achieving it. Consider the real-life story of Jim Carrey. Before he became famous, he wrote himself a check for $10 million, dated it 5 years in the future, and carried it in his wallet. He didn't just dream about it, he visualized what that success would feel like while working tirelessly on his craft. When the date on the check approached, he landed his first major movie role that paid him exactly $10 million. That's not magic. That's the result of aligning vision with action until reality had no choice but to catch up. The beauty of visualization is that it rewires your brain to recognize opportunities. When you imagine your success in detail, your mind begins filtering information differently, noticing resources, people, and situations that align with your vision. It's like tuning a radio to the right frequency. You suddenly hear what was always there, but you were too distracted to notice. Pair that with consistent action, and you start turning those opportunities into momentum. It's important to note that visualization isn't about waiting for the universe to deliver everything to your doorstep. It's about priming yourself to act boldly when the door cracks open. The world rewards people who are ready. If you imagine yourself confident and capable every day, when the chance arises to speak up, pitch an idea, or step into a new role, you will already feel like the person who belongs in that moment. There's also an emotional component that makes this practice powerful. When you connect deep feelings, gratitude, joy, determination to your vision, your brain can't distinguish between imagined and real experiences. That emotional rehearsal builds belief, and belief fuels persistence. You no longer ask, "Can I?" You start telling yourself, "I will." And that shift in self-talk is often the difference between quitting and following through. Let's look at another example. Oprah Winfrey has often spoken about the role visualization played in her journey. She didn't just work hard, she envisioned herself impacting millions of people long before it happened. But her vision alone wasn't enough. She backed it up with relentless effort, discipline, and courage to take bold steps. Her life is living proof that vision attracts direction and action delivers results. The challenge most people face is doubt. They start visualizing, but their inner voice whispers, "This is unrealistic," or "That will never happen for someone like you." The antidote is evidence. Every time you pair vision with action, you create small wins that silence that doubt. Think of it like collecting proof for your subconscious. Each step forward confirms that what you saw in your mind is not a fantasy, it's in progress. You don't need to visualize winning the whole game. See yourself completing the next play, then execute it. Over time, those plays build into victory. The key is to trust the process even when results are not immediate. The invisible groundwork is being laid, and your consistency will eventually make it visible. Here's another practice you can adopt. Create a vision board filled with images, quotes, and reminders of the life you're working toward. Place it where you'll see it daily. Each time you glance at it, take a breath and picture yourself already living that reality. Then ask yourself, what's one step I can take right now to bring this closer? The repetition of seeing, feeling, and acting creates a powerful cycle that keeps you moving. It's also crucial to align your environment with your vision. If you visualize success but surround yourself with negativity, chaos, or distractions, you sabotage your own energy. Clear your space, cut out toxic influences, and surround yourself with people and tools that reinforce where you're headed. Environment shapes behavior, and behavior shapes results. Over time, something remarkable happens. Your vision and your reality begin to merge. You no longer feel like you're chasing success. It feels like success is chasing you. People notice your confidence, opportunities appear in unexpected ways, and situations align because your energy is congruent with your goals. That's what it means to attract, not sitting passively, but creating such alignment between vision and action that results become inevitable. The greatest victories are never accidents. They are visualized before they are lived, rehearsed before they are performed, and pursued through daily action. You may not control how quickly your vision arrives, but you control whether you keep it alive and keep moving toward it. So, close your eyes again and imagine your future self standing in the life you desire. Feel it as if it's already yours. Then open your eyes and take one real step toward it today. Because when vision and action walk hand in hand, life has no choice but to deliver. And if you keep showing up, one day you'll look around and realize you're living the picture you once only carried in your mind. That is the power of visualizing, acting, and attracting. Chapter 10. Winning is a lifestyle. Winning is not a moment, a trophy, or a fleeting achievement. It is a way of living, a consistent approach to life that blends purpose, persistence, and self-mastery into every decision, action, and thought. It is the mindset of someone who refuses to leave success to chance and chooses instead to create it deliberately through habits, choices, and unwavering commitment. When winning becomes a lifestyle, it no longer depends on external circumstances. Challenges, failures, or criticism no longer derail progress because the foundation has shifted from fleeting results to enduring principles that govern every day. The first element of a winning lifestyle is purpose. Every action must have direction. Without purpose, energy dissipates like water through a sieve, effort is scattered, and results are inconsistent. Purpose clarifies priorities, provides a compass for difficult decisions, and fuels persistence when obstacles appear. A person living with purpose wakes with intention rather than obligation. Even mundane tasks are framed as steps toward a greater goal, creating a sense of meaning that drives consistency. Purpose transforms routine into ritual and work into expression. Persistence is the second pillar. Life is inherently unpredictable, and every meaningful pursuit will encounter setbacks. Winning is not about avoiding failure. It is about refusing to quit when faced with it. Persistence is the quiet refusal to be swayed by temporary discomfort, disappointment, or delay. It is the inner dialogue that says, "I will continue, I will adapt, I will overcome," no matter the circumstances. Daily incremental effort compounds into momentum that cannot be stopped, and small wins accumulate into extraordinary results over time. Self-mastery is the final cornerstone. Winning is impossible without control over thoughts, emotions, and actions. Self-mastery requires discipline to resist immediate gratification in favor of long-term gains, courage to confront weaknesses, and humility to learn constantly. It is the ability to choose responses deliberately rather than react impulsively. A person with self-mastery knows when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to pause, when to push forward and when to recover. This control transforms potential into tangible achievement. One practice that cultivates this lifestyle is the 3 pillars daily check-in. Every morning, dedicate 10 minutes to reflect on purpose, persistence, and self-mastery. Ask, what is my central purpose today? Where will persistence be required? And how will I maintain it? How can I practice self-mastery in my thoughts, emotions, and actions? Write concise answers and refer to them throughout the day. This ritual keeps attention anchored on principles rather than distractions, creating alignment between intention and behavior. Consider the example of Serena Williams, whose life embodies winning as a lifestyle. Her purpose was clear: to be among the greatest athletes in history. Yet talent alone was not enough. She persisted through injuries, defeats, and personal challenges. She demonstrated self-mastery by controlling diet, training, and mental preparation, ensuring that every choice reinforced her goals. Her success was not a single victory, but the result of decades of intentional living, where every day contributed to her identity as a champion. Winning as a lifestyle also demands conscious environment design. Surrounding oneself with influences that reinforce growth, motivation, and accountability is essential. People who aspire to excellence must be intentional about the energy they allow into their space, the resources they engage with, and the relationships they maintain. Distractions, negative influences, and aimless habits are not merely inconveniences, they are obstacles to sustaining a lifestyle of success. Guarding the environment is as crucial as cultivating internal discipline. Resilience is cultivated within this lifestyle. When setbacks occur, as they inevitably will, the person who lives to win treats them as opportunities for feedback, adjustment, and growth, rather than as final judgments. Each failure becomes a lesson, each challenge a training ground for persistence, and each obstacle an invitation to refine strategy. Over time, adversity strengthens rather than diminishes the individual, reinforcing the principles of winning daily. Celebration and reflection are equally important. A winning lifestyle is not about relentless pressure or denying satisfaction. It requires acknowledgement of progress, gratitude for achievements, and reflection on lessons learned. Regular reflection enhances awareness, reinforces purpose, and clarifies the next steps. Without pausing to recognize accomplishments, effort can feel hollow and motivation diminishes. Celebrating milestones fuels continued engagement and inspires further persistence. Winning also entails conscious prioritization. Time, energy, and attention are finite, and every choice to invest in one area comes at the expense of another. A lifestyle of victory requires deliberate allocation of resources toward actions that create the greatest impact aligned with purpose. This may mean saying no to social distractions, unnecessary obligations, or comfort in favor of growth. Every disciplined choice reinforces identity and strengthens the trajectory toward meaningful outcomes. A practical illustration of this principle can be seen in Elon Musk's approach to his work. His purpose, to accelerate humanity's transition to sustainable energy and expand life to other planets, guides every decision. His persistence is evident in countless setbacks, failed rockets, and near bankruptcies. His self-mastery manifests in relentless focus, efficient time allocation, and disciplined learning across multiple fields. Musk's victories are not the result of chance. They reflect daily decisions aligned with purpose, executed with persistence, and guided by self-mastery. Small, consistent actions form the backbone of this lifestyle. It is not a single breakthrough that defines winning, but 1,000 deliberate decisions compounded over time. Writing for 30 minutes daily, exercising consistently, reading to expand knowledge, responding thoughtfully rather than reactively. These may seem minor individually, but their accumulation shapes character, capability, and opportunity. Success, when viewed as a lifestyle, is the natural outcome of repeated, intentional choices. Living to win requires accountability. Keeping track of progress, revisiting goals, and honestly evaluating performance ensures that action aligns with purpose. Without accountability, even consistent effort can drift. Journaling, mentorship, or measurable metrics create feedback loops that allow adjustments and reinforce the commitment to principles. Accountability transforms vague intentions into tangible trajectories. Ultimately, a lifestyle of winning is the integration of mindset, behavior, and identity. It is waking each day with clarity of purpose, facing challenges with persistence, and choosing action guided by self-mastery. It is knowing that every decision, however small, contributes to long-term success. It is a commitment not just to outcomes, but to becoming the kind of person capable of sustaining excellence over a lifetime. The truth is that victory is not a final destination. It is a journey defined by how consistently and intentionally life is lived. By embedding purpose, persistence, and self-mastery into daily practice, setbacks become lessons, challenges become opportunities, and ordinary days become building blocks for extraordinary results. Each day is a chance to reinforce identity, cultivate resilience, and attract outcomes aligned with vision. Every choice, every habit, every thought matters. A winning lifestyle is not reserved for the naturally gifted. It is available to anyone willing to live deliberately, act persistently, and master themselves daily. By embracing this way of life, success becomes not a fleeting moment, but a continuous, self-sustaining reality. When principles govern life more than circumstances, when action follows vision, and when persistence anchors purpose, victory is no longer occasional, it becomes the natural state of being.